let's talk about Gulliver's travels. We're going to start with an analysis of the plot. So to start, the initial situation is that Gulliver's London medical practice fails, so he has to go to the sea. The hero, which is Lemuel Gulliver, really likes being at the sea. He likes observing people, so he doesn't seem too sad about the fact that he has to leave his wife and become a sailor again, after his brief hiatus of domestic life in England. To focus on Gulliver's slow turn against mankind as the main plotline of Gulliver's travel, the Gulliver's initial situation is that one of relative open-mindedness about people, and also he uses this time to learn language and read books. So what is the conflict? The main conflict that we have is when Gulliver meets the Lilliputians. In the first chapter of his adventures, Gulliver washes ashore in Lilliput. That is an island filled with tiny people whose size is like foolish, right? They make him feel pretty secure. He's still at the whims of court intrigue and politics, but he's rarely in real danger of anything, since he could easily kill a Lilliputian with his foot if he needed to. At the same time, of course, Lilliput is Gulliver's first experience of the pettiness of human affairs, and is the first sign of his growing discomfort with people. When we talk about the complications of his travels, another complication is when he meets the Brobdingnagians. So, the Lilliputians introduced the whole idea of a poor government and hypocrisy. The Brobdingnagians really bring this home to Gulliver, and literally, as the small person in this scenario, Gulliver is at the mercy of the Brobdingnagians. So, when the king criticizes Gulliver's home country, England, there's nothing Gulliver can do but sit there and take it. Of course, when we talk about this, we have to make sure that we understand that Gulliver's ego takes a bit of a blow. And he is nearly killed by a frog, a cat, and a young puppy. He's no longer exactly the Superman he was in Lilliput, because he was no longer that size. The climax of it is when Gulliver offers gunpowder and is rejected. So when we go back to part 2, chapter 7, Gulliver offers to show the Brobdingnagian king how to make gunpowder. But then the king refuses in horror, and Gulliver uses this denial as proof of how naive and ignorant the Brobdingnagian king really is. However, at the same time, he comes to the conclusion of, at the conclusion of the novel, he comes to acknowledge that the least evil among Yahoos are the Brobdingnagians, because, and I open quote, whose wise maxims in morality and government it would be our happiness to observe. So in other words, he has come to see that the Brobdingnagians are, of course and indeed, superior than the European Yahoos, and of course the Lilliputians, which they have a government which was a little bit hypocrisy. This act of refusal of gunpowder provides an example for Gulliver of an alternative approach to governance that he cannot take on board yet, but he says that he will take on it eventually. Last but not least, we have the suspense. Suspense is the third part of Gulliver's travels, and this happens when essentially what happens is that we are waiting for Gulliver to acknowledge the defects of humankind, but he becomes an observant. While the other 3 parts really focus on governance and morality, the Lilliputian saga satirizes science. There's some stuff about mismanagement of lands in there, but it represents something of a digression from the main plot of the novel. When we talk about denouement, Gulliver meets the Houyhnhnms and the Yahoos. The denouement is the part of the book where everything becomes clear. And Gulliver, when he first meets the Yahoos and is completely disgusted, he sees for the first time humans as we really are, without any of the disguises that clothing and good grooming might offer. On the other hand, the kindliness and rationality of the Houyhnhnms, they provide like a foil for everything that humans aren't. So it shows us what humans aren't. We have the conclusion. When we talk about the conclusion, we know that Gulliver becomes a hermit. When we follow Gulliver's revelation that people are gross and terrible due to the Yahoos and his expression, he decides that he wants to stay with the humans forever. But they don't allow it. They don't allow him to stay, but he tries to find a deserted island. When he finds a Portuguese ship arriving to his island, he attempts to avoid it and then he tries to jump overboard. Of course, when he arrives in England, Gulliver cannot be in the same room with his wife and children because of the way they smell. And this just brings us to Gulliver's transformation that is going to be complete. He's gone from a pretty friendly guy to a complete total man-hater. And this is because of his entire travels in which he saw the entire lot of humanities all around it, and he decided that humanity was not as good as he thought. This is really important to know because the story at the end shows us how humanity can be seen from different points of view. Thank you for coming to this analysis, and I hope you enjoyed the video.